My name is Jonathan Miller. I'm 71 years old. And I never imagined that the people I raised, fed, protected, and loved for decades would one day conspire behind my back to push me out of my own home, yet that's exactly what happened. And the only reason I survived their betrayal was because I set a trap they never saw coming. A trap that revealed every secret they tried so desperately to hide. It all began quietly, subtly. The same way family betrayal always does. Little comments from my daughter-in-law about downsizing. Whispered conversations that stopped the moment I walked into a room. My son asking questions about my will that he had no business asking. And the constant suggestion that maybe I'd be happier somewhere with people my age. At first I brushed it off. I thought they were just concerned or maybe stressed. But then I noticed how they suddenly took an interest in my medicine cabinet, my doctor appointments, even my memory, constantly asking, "Dad, are you sure you didn't forget?" And repeating the same questions to each other as if they were keeping score of every time I misplaced my glasses or forgot what day it was. My house, the one I built with my own hands decades ago, slowly became a battlefield filled with fake smiles, rehearsed politeness, and a type of coldness I never expected from my own blood. Then one afternoon I overheard them talking when they thought I was asleep. My son, my daughter-in-law, and even my niece gathered in the living room whispering about selling the house, about legal guardianship, about doctor evaluations, and about how I was becoming a burden. My heart froze. They weren't talking about helping me, they were talking about removing me. They had already contacted a lawyer. They had already spoken to a real estate agent. They were planning my exit before I had even left the room. I felt something inside me harden that day, not anger, not sadness, but a cold, sharp clarity. If they wanted a fight, they were going to get one. But not the way they expected. The next morning, I acted confused on purpose, pretending to forget my keys, pretending to lose track of conversations, playing right into the narrative they were weaving behind my back. I watched their eyes light up with relief every time I fumbled. They thought their plan was working. But in reality, I was gathering information, observing them carefully, noting every lie, every whisper, every document they tried to hide from me. And then I did something they didn't expect. I called my lawyer, my real lawyer, the one they didn't know I still had. I updated my will, secured my assets, moved the house into a protected trust, and set up a digital security system inside the house, including microphones in the vents, small recording devices under the dining table, and a motion-triggered camera behind a bookshelf, none of which they knew existed. My attorney helped me create a formal folder with false documents that made it seem like I was transferring everything to my son. Fake deeds. Fake letters, fake evaluations papers designed to test their greed, to draw them out. And sure enough, they took the bait faster than I expected. A week later, my son came into my room with a tone of exaggerated sympathy and said, "Dad, we need to talk about your living situation." His wife hovered behind him, clutching a folder so tightly her knuckles were white. My niece sat at the dining table pretending to be on her phone, but she kept glancing up nervously. They asked me to move to an assisted living home they had. Researched, one where they could check on me often. What they didn't mention, but what I already knew from their late night whispers, was that they had already filled out my application, already scheduled my evaluation, and already spoken to the facility director. They needed only one thing, my signature. And they thought they could trick me into giving it. I pretended to hesitate, to be scared, to be confused. I let them believe I was vulnerable. And then, when the moment felt right, I told them I needed one evening to think. They agreed immediately. They thought they'd won. But that night, while they slept, I set the trap. I placed the fake documents, the ones saying I'd already signed the house, over to my son inside my unlocked desk drawer. I placed the false medical evaluation letter on my nightstand. I left the folder sitting in plain sight as bait. And then I waited. At 2:13 a.m., my motion-triggered camera recorded exactly what I expected. My daughter-in-law sneaking into my room, opening the folder, taking pictures of every page, whispering, "Yes. Yes, finally." An hour later, my niece entered my study, sending the same documents to herself by email while muttering, "He won't even know." And at 4:52 a.m., my son himself walked in, took the fake deed, and told someone on the phone that everything will be done by Friday. What they didn't know was that every second, every lie, every whisper, every stolen document was recorded, time-stamped, and automatically backed up to my lawyer's office. The next morning, I cooked breakfast like nothing had happened. My family sat around the table acting normal, smiling nervously, waiting for me to sign away my life. My son finally asked, "Dad, have you made a decision?" I said yes. And then I told them we were going to the attorney's office together to finalize everything. They lit up like they had won the lottery. When we arrived, they sat across from my lawyer, confident, smug, practically glowing with anticipation. And then my lawyer pressed a button. The screen on the wall lit up, and the recording began. First, my daughter-in-law sneaking in, whispering, stealing documents. Then my niece emailing files to herself, talking about getting rid of me faster than expected. Then my son gloating on the phone, saying he'd finally get the house and Dad won't fight it, he's too far gone. Their faces drained of color instantly. My daughter-in-law covered her mouth. My niece burst into tears. My son stuttered, Dad, this is taken out of context." I held up my hand. "No, it's exactly in context." My lawyer then presented the real documents, the ones protecting the house, the ones protecting my medical independence, the ones proving they had no legal power over me whatsoever. And then he delivered the final blow. I had already filed a restraining order, request, and a petition for attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person. They were speechless. My son tried to apologize, but his words were empty apologies made only because they were caught, not because they were sorry. I stood up slowly, leaned on my cane, and said the words I never thought I'd have to say to my own family. "You tried to take my home. You tried to take my freedom. And you lied to my face while doing it. I will never trust you again." That afternoon, they were removed from my property. My house remained mine, my life remained mine, my dignity remained mine. And as I sat on my porch that evening watching the sunset, I realized something painful but liberating. Blood makes you related, but loyalty makes you family. They wanted me out of my house, but instead I removed them from my life.